Her son and his wife told her to stay in the guest house because the main house felt more like theirs now. Evelyn Hart didn't fight. She just found the deed. By Friday, their names were off the utilities. The locks were changed, and the buyer had already wired the funds. She'd let them move in after the crash. Now she was selling the home they thought they inherited, while they were still living in it. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The valet door shut behind her with a soft click, sealing Evelyn into a different kind of silence. The kind that wasn't peaceful, but performed. The restaurant was tucked into a brick-walled side street of Charleston's historic district. Gas lanterns flickered along the walkway, casting amber light on the black iron signage. Maison Revel. French. Pretentious. Definitely Jess's choice. Inside, laughter spilled from a long mahogany table set for 12. Brandon was at the head, raising a glass mid-toast as Evelyn was led by a hostess toward the group. His voice carried, to being 30 but feeling 20. "Accept your knees," someone joked. Laughter. Glasses clinked. Jessa sat beside Brandon, perfectly placed, perfectly poised. When Evelyn stepped into view, the table quieted. Not completely, but enough for her to hear the hiccup in conversation. The fraction of a beat that told her she wasn't expected to show. Jessa's smile was automatic, too wide, too white. "Evelyn," she said with a brightness that curdled at the edges, "you made it." Her tone landed like something thrown. Evelyn smiled back, non-committal. "Happy birthday, Brandon." Brandon stood, brushing imaginary lint from his blazer. He leaned in for a brief side hug, one-armed, and avoided eye contact. "Glad you could come." A pause. Long enough for it to feel like a question. Then Jessa gestured to the only open seat, at the far end of the table, opposite Brandon, nearly out of sight. It faced the wall. "We saved you a spot," Jessa chirped. "Hope it's okay." Evelyn walked the length of the table under a quiet storm of glances. Perfume mingled with the rich scent of seared steak and truffle oil. Polished silverware reflected every angle of discomfort. Tara met her eyes as she passed. The only one who did. Her look wasn't pity. It was sharper than that. Alert. The conversations resumed, but with a noticeable shift. Evelyn sat down. She smoothed her napkin over her lap and tried to ignore how distant she felt from every voice in the room. "So anyway," Jessa was saying, twisting a curl around one finger, "we all agreed the Hamptons trip was perfect. Except for that one Airbnb. Remember the rats?" Someone gagged theatrically. Someone else said, "Don't remind me." They laughed. Brandon looked at his wine. Jessa kept the spotlight like it belonged to her, like it had been passed down. Evelyn sipped water, eyes drifting over the decor. The soft cream walls, the velvet-backed chairs, the private wine cabinet glowing behind glass. "It's a beautiful place," she said softly, to no one in particular. Jessa heard it anyway. She stood and crossed behind Brandon's chair to check on the wine. Except she stopped beside Evelyn. Leaned in, still smiling. "You really should have stayed home," she whispered, her lips barely moving. "No one here is rooting for you." She straightened before Evelyn could speak. "Anyone want the Pinot?" she called. "Or are we finally grown-ups who drink real reds?" Brandon didn't react. Not even a flicker. But Tara watched it all, from 2 seats away, fork frozen in midair, expression unreadable. Evelyn didn't turn her head, didn't blink. Her hand stayed folded in her lap as the world spun casually on around her. The comment had been quiet, but it wasn't forgotten. Not by her, and definitely not by Tara. Across the table, the waiter returned to refill drinks. Jessa was laughing again, too loud. She flipped her hair and made a joke about messy exes. Everyone chuckled, including Brandon. Evelyn's stomach curled. Not from hurt, from calculation. She looked up. Her eyes locked briefly with Tara's, and Tara, very slowly, raised one eyebrow. That was the moment. Not loud, not obvious. But Evelyn felt it like a key turning in a door she hadn't realized was closed. The first flicker of alignment. A crack in the wall Jessa had spent years building brick by brick. Then Brandon said, We should take a group photo. Of course they should. Jessa stood immediately, tugging her neckline into place. Let me fix my lip, she said, disappearing toward the restroom, and Evelyn stood too, casually but deliberately. I'll go help her, she said, brushing her chair back. No one stopped her, not even Brandon. The door clicked shut behind Evelyn, muffling the restaurant's laughter like a lid snapping over a pot that was about to boil. She didn't follow Jessa, not to the mirror-polished restroom, not into another petty corner of a war Jessa thought she was winning. Instead, Evelyn kept walking, down the hallway, past the wine cellar, out the back door into the cool Charleston night. She needed clean air. The salt from the harbor drifted in on a breeze, catching her blouse and peeling the last of the tension from her shoulders. She checked her phone. 9:27 p.m. The notifications were a thicket of silence, not one from Brandon, but that wasn't surprising anymore. What was surprising was how still she felt, like something had snapped into place earlier, and now her body had finally caught up to her mind. The next morning, Evelyn stood in the kitchen of her second home, or what used to be her home, until she let Brandon and Jessa move in for a little while during the market crash. Sunlight filtered through the bay windows, falling over the marble countertops and the sleek new appliances she never chose. Jessa's touch was everywhere. White and gold accents, minimalist bar stools, a ridiculous 6-foot art print of a woman biting into a diamond. Evelyn poured coffee into her old ceramic mug, the one she'd packed away in the back of the cabinet like muscle memory. It was chipped. It was hers. She took a slow sip, walked to the study, and unlocked the fireproof drawer in her filing cabinet. A manila folder slid out with the scratch of paper against metal. She placed it on the desk and opened it like it was a puzzle she'd buried years ago. Property title: 218 Mayfield Lane. Owner: Evelyn Hart. She stared at it for a long time. No second names, no co-signatures, just her own neat writing and the final blue ink flourish of her signature at the bottom. They'd made renovations, opened up the kitchen, put in French doors, but they'd never paid a dime in mortgage. She hadn't even let Brandon add his name to the utility accounts. That had been her last line, a line she now realized she'd drawn for this very reason. Linda arrived without knocking, as always. She dropped her purse on the chair and held up a paper bag. I brought croissants, the ones with the pistachio cream you like. Evelyn gestured at the document. They think it's theirs. Linda's brows lifted. It's not? No, Evelyn said, tapping the paper. I never gave them the signature. I just let them believe it. Linda sat down slowly, a crease forming between her eyes. Ev, you let them build their whole future on a fantasy. I know. You moved into the guest house like a ghost, Linda said quietly. And now they're trying to haunt you out of your own place? Evelyn smiled thinly. They're about to find out ghosts can sue, Linda snorted. This is why I love you. Most women cry over betrayal. You call a lawyer. I'm not calling him, Evelyn said, standing. I already scheduled the meeting. Neil Cutter, Friday morning. Linda blinked. Your old estate attorney, Evelyn nodded. He owes me a favor, and he knows how to draw blood in court filings. She picked up the folder and slid it into her briefcase, her motions calm, exact. Like she was stepping back into a version of herself she'd left behind too long ago. Are you sure you want to go nuclear? Linda asked, watching her closely. Evelyn snapped the briefcase shut. I'm not the one who started the fire. That night, back at the guest house, Evelyn sat on the edge of her bed, reviewing her own reflection in the darkened window. Her phone lit up beside her. Text from Jessa. Hey, just a heads up. We're redoing the floors in the main house next month. Brandon says you might want to find somewhere else to stay while they work. Evelyn stared at the screen, a slow smile forming. Then she opened her notes app and typed, To do, Friday, Neil Cutter, title verification and formal eviction strategy. Mail certified copy of deed to Brandon's workplace change guest house, locks. Burn the bridge, she hit save. And for the first time in months, maybe years, Evelyn Hart slept without grinding her teeth. The driveway was empty, Brandon's Tesla gone, Jessa's white Lexus too, Pilates and a podcast brunch most likely. Evelyn didn't care enough to know for sure. She stood at the edge of the flagstone path leading up to the porch. Her heels sank slightly into the softened earth, dew still clinging to the grass. She'd dressed sharply for this: slacks, pressed collar, a trench coat the color of storm clouds. Not for theatrics, for clarity. There'd been too much pretending, too much blurred intention. Today was about seeing everything as it really was. The key slid into the door like it remembered her. The scent inside was different now, cleaner, sharper, artificial. Scented oils hummed from a plug-in diffuser near the stairs. Something citrusy. Expensive. The kind of smell that wanted you to think of money and forgot to feel like home. Evelyn stepped inside the living room and stood still. They had gutted it. Gone were the cherrywood bookshelves, the arched wall sconces, the spindle-legged side table her father had made by hand. In their place, brushed nickel fixtures, sharp-edged floating shelves, a sleek black leather sectional that looked more showroom than lived in. She pulled out her phone. Snap. Wide shot. The fireplace had been redone in smooth quartz. The mantel had vanished entirely. Snap. Kitchen next. Stainless steel. Overhead pot filler. A glass wine chiller embedded into the island. She remembered when Brandon first floated the idea. Just modernizing a little, babe. You'll love it. Snap. Snap. The photographs weren't sentimental. They were evidence. Fuel. Proof of improvements made under the assumption of ownership. She moved methodically from room to room, photographing cabinets, fixtures, floors, appliances. Receipts still stuck to the fridge with branded magnets. A vanity labeled Jess's Glam Station caught her eye. She took a long look at the full-length mirror beside it, the one angled to catch the golden hour. Snap. Back in the study, she pulled the guest bedroom closet door open. Inside, Brandon's backup suits, dry cleaned and hanging like waiting alibis. Evelyn opened the briefcase she'd brought, pulled out a clipboard, and scribbled notes beside the photos. At exactly 10:30 a.m., her phone buzzed. Neil Cutter, law office. On my way. By noon, they sat across from each other at Evelyn's favorite table at the Charleston City Club. Neil wore his same gray blazer, the one with frayed cuffs and the faint scent of cigars. He flipped through the folder she'd handed him, brows raised. They put at least $100,000 into that place, he murmured. And not one document signed, Evelyn said calmly. Not one deed. Not one power of attorney. Neil tapped the page with a chewed-up pencil. All these upgrades were made without transfer, which means the equity stays in your column. Evelyn didn't smile, not outwardly, but something under her ribs eased for the first time in years. Neil closed the folder. You ready for me to get loud? No, Evelyn said, folding her hands. Not loud? Quiet? He looked up. She met his gaze, steady and unwavering. I want to sell it before they even realize the air's changed, she said. No warning, no confrontation, just gone. Neil leaned back. We can initiate a quiet title action by end of week. Run it under your trust's name. Maria at the records office still owes me from the rezoning fiasco. 2 hours later, Evelyn walked into the Charleston County title office. The lobby was tiled, bland, cold, but Maria met her with a warm hug and a cautious smile. Still one of the cleanest property chains I've seen, Maria said, flipping open her screen. Nothing's been filed since 2008. No changes? Evelyn asked. Maria shook her head. None, not even a lien. Evelyn exhaled once, a small thing, but it felt like letting go of a boulder she'd been carrying in her lungs. Back at the guest house, Linda arrived with a fresh bottle of wine and no fewer than 3 legal pads. I saw Cutter leaving, she said, toeing off her heels. What did he say? It's mine. Legally, irrevocably mine, Evelyn said, handing her the folder. Every upgrade they made just raised the sale value, for me. Linda flipped through the photos, lips twitching into a grin. And they have no idea? None, Linda glanced up. This isn't erasure, Ev. This is reclamation. You're not punishing them. You're recovering yourself. Evelyn didn't answer. She was staring out the window, eyes fixed on the distant main house. They turned it into something I didn't recognize, she said quietly. So I'm taking it back before it hardens that way forever. Her phone buzzed. Text from Brandon. Hey, quick cue. Do you know if our HVAC warranty paperwork is in the drawer by the sink? Evelyn deleted the message without replying. Then, very calmly, she picked up the remote, turned on the speaker, and played Billie Holiday's You've Changed. The music floated through the space as Linda poured 2 glasses of wine. And somewhere, down the long driveway and across an invisible line, Jessa and Brandon had no idea their home was already halfway sold. The appraiser wore cufflinks and cologne that tried too hard. Evelyn didn't mind. She wasn't here to make friends. She was here to make money. They walked the property like strangers, and that was fitting. Evelyn didn't flinch when he took notes on the modern light fixtures, the recessed ceiling, the heated floors Jessa bragged about to anyone who'd listen. She stayed silent when he murmured high-end finishes, interesting layout choices. The only time she reacted was when he named the market value. It was more than she'd expected, much more. "This area's on fire," he said, tapping the final number into his tablet. "We could list it for $950 and have a bidding war." "I won't be listing it," she said. "The trust will." He looked up sharply. Evelyn held his gaze, flat and cool. "This stays discreet." By the end of the week, the paperwork had moved faster than secrets in a small town. The property was quietly transferred under Harbor Pines Holdings, LLC, a trust name Neil had created for her, built to deflect questions and absorb noise. Evelyn never touched a sign, no ads, no open houses. She'd chosen an agent who specialized in quiet listings, Charlotte, mid-30s, whip-smart, and blessed with the kind of icy efficiency Evelyn had come to appreciate. "We'll only show between 9 and noon," Charlotte confirmed over the phone, Mondays through Thursdays. "And I'll have my team enter through the side garden gate. No signage, no parked cars out front." "Perfect," Evelyn replied. "If the current occupants see anything, it all falls apart." "They won't," Charlotte assured her. "People like them don't look for what's happening right under their noses. They look for someone to blame when it's over." And so it began. Realtors stepped over the threshold in clean heels and lowered voices. They murmured about backsplash tiles and walk-in pantries and market velocity. Evelyn watched from the guest house window, sipping her coffee while her own house, the one she'd been erased from, was toured like a prize. By the 3rd showing, an offer landed, all cash, no contingencies, fast close. Charlotte's voice buzzed with professional disbelief when she called. "I don't know what kind of karma you're sitting on, but it's happening." Evelyn said nothing, just nodded to herself and stared out the window where a wind chime on the porch of the main house danced like it already knew. It wasn't Tara who noticed first. It was her teenage son, Micah. He was walking their beagle, Max, past the property on a Tuesday morning when he spotted a woman in a blazer walking a couple through the backyard. He told Tara at dinner, and Tara, already sharpened by instinct, already watching Evelyn with quiet curiosity, texted her within the hour. "Tara, hey, saw some realtors walking your lawn. Everything okay?" Evelyn stared at the message. A long, quiet minute passed. She replied simply, "Evelyn, don't worry, I've got it handled." No emoji, no follow-up. Tara didn't press, but her silence said everything. Later that night, Evelyn pulled the deed from her drawer again, just to look at it. Not out of doubt, out of gravity. The kind of weight you feel right before a plane lifts off. The house that had once felt like her retirement plan, her peace, her reward, had been twisted into something transactional, performative, false. Jessa had painted it, but Evelyn had paid for the walls. Brandon had played host, but Evelyn had built the home. They thought they had rewritten her out of the story. But now she was writing the final paragraph. She picked up her phone and scrolled back to the last text Brandon had sent, the one about HVAC paperwork. She hovered her thumb over it for a beat, then archived it. Out of sight, not quite deleted, but close. Then she opened her calendar. Closing day, October 19th. 2 weeks. Not even enough time to blink if you weren't paying attention. The next morning, while Jessa posted a story from her bar class and Brandon tweeted a joke about fantasy football, Evelyn walked the length of the guest house with Charlotte's update ringing in her ear. The buyer wants to close early. They're relocating from Boston and need to move fast. Evelyn smiled into the phone. "Tell them yes." She stepped outside and stood at the edge of the lawn, facing the main house like it was a ship already halfway sunk. Inside, somewhere beyond those walls, Jessa was picking out new cabinet handles. And Evelyn, She was selling the ground beneath her. Neil Cutter didn't bother with small talk. The draft slid across Evelyn's table with a satisfying shuffle, the thick linen stock embossed at the top with the law firm's name in crisp navy ink. The text was formal, surgical, every line cut with precision, stitched tight with legal terms that left no room for plea or protest. Notice to vacate effective immediately, 30 days, non-negotiable, filed under the legal authority of sole property ownership, pursuant to South Carolina Code. I added a clause in case they try to stall, Neil said, tapping the page. Failure to vacate triggers triple rent valuation, retroactive. Evelyn nodded. She didn't flinch. Neil glanced at her. You sure you want it sent today? I want it sent right now. By 10:15 a.m., 2 copies were out, one by certified mail, the other, an identical PDF, dispatched to their shared Gmail with subject line, formal notice, 218 Mayfield Lane. Evelyn watched it leave her outbox, then closed her laptop and went to stand at the window. The main house looked quiet, too quiet, the blinds drawn like eyelids bracing for impact. The storm hit 6 minutes later. Her phone lit up with a call from Jessa. No greeting, just breathless fury. What the hell is this? Evelyn let the question hang. You emailed us a legal eviction? Jessa barked. You're kicking us out of the house we've lived in for 4 years? Evelyn's voice didn't rise. 3 years, 8 months, and it was never yours. I said you could stay there while you got back on your feet. That was years ago, Jessa snapped. We renovated it. We built that life. You built it on land you didn't own, Evelyn replied. That's not my fault. Jessa laughed, the kind that comes right before the tears. Oh my God, you're actually doing this. You're mad because we told you to stay in the guest house, and now you're burning everything down? Evelyn didn't blink. You told me I should have stayed home. So? I planned to. Click. Evelyn set the phone down like it was still hot. 3 minutes passed before it buzzed again. Brandon. She answered this one. He sounded different. Not sharp like Jessa, just wounded. Lost. Ev, please, what is this? You never said this wasn't ours. Evelyn leaned against the counter, watching a squirrel chase across the fence. And I never said it was. You let us believe. No, she interrupted gently. I let you live here, that's all. His silence was heavy, regretful, almost boyish. I don't know how we got here, he said finally. Evelyn exhaled slowly. You stopped asking, and I stopped correcting you. That's how. He paused. You're really going through with it. Escrow closes in 12 days. He sucked in a breath. There's no way to undo this? She didn't answer. Because there was, technically, but she wouldn't. Instead, she said, Start packing. By sunset, the guest house felt impossibly quiet, like the silence that comes right after someone slams a door and leaves. Linda stopped by with Chinese takeout and didn't even ask. She just sat beside Evelyn on the porch swing, 2 cartons in hand, and let the silence settle around them like an old sweater. They call yet? Linda asked. They screamed, then begged. Linda nodded like she already knew. People don't believe the storm's coming until the roof starts leaking. Evelyn didn't look away from the main house. A lamp clicked on in one of the upstairs windows. Jessa's silhouette moved behind gauzy curtains. From here, she looked small, unaware. You okay? Linda asked. I didn't owe them kindness, Evelyn said softly. But I gave it anyway. They turned it into entitlement. And now? Evelyn's jaw tightened just slightly. Now I'm taking it back. Linda reached into the bag and pulled out a fortune cookie. Cracking it open without ceremony, she handed Evelyn the slip of paper. Evelyn read it once, then twice. The best revenge is done without raised voices. She tucked it into her coat pocket. At exactly 8:03 p.m., an email notification pinged her phone. Subject: Buyer ready to finalize terms. Message: Please confirm final inspection availability and move-out status. Buyer requests pre-possession clause be activated if property is vacated prior to closing. Funds will be wired upon confirmation. Evelyn stared at it, a slow smile curving at the corners of her mouth. She typed back 2 words, full green light. Then she looked out toward the glowing windows of the main house. They were still home, For now. The knock came just after noon. Gentle, hesitant, almost polite. Evelyn knew it wasn't Jessa before she even opened the door. Tara stood there, shoulders drawn in, wind tugging at her denim jacket. Her hair was pulled back in a loose braid, eyes rimmed with the kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from watching too much unravel. Behind her, Max the beagle sniffed the porch steps like he belonged there. "Hey," Evelyn said quietly. No smile, just space. Tara shifted her weight. "Can I come in?" Evelyn stepped aside without a word. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lemon polish and black coffee. The afternoon light filtered through gauzy curtains, softening everything. Tara hesitated at the doorway, taking it in. The tidy calm of the guest house, the quiet steadiness of the woman her stepmother had tried to erase. "She's losing it, you know," Tara said finally, voice low. "My mom, Jessa. She's pacing the kitchen like a campaign manager in a scandal movie. Brandon's pretending to make phone calls, but he's just staring at the sink." Evelyn didn't answer. She poured tea. Let the sound of ceramic and kettle fill the silence. "She treats you like background," Tara said suddenly. "But you've always been the foundation." Evelyn looked up. "You didn't have to come here to say that." "I know," Tara swallowed. "But I wanted to." There was no performance in her voice, no practiced sympathy, no borrowed outrage. Just something simple and raw. Recognition. The kind of truth that doesn't ask to be believed because it already is. Evelyn poured a second cup and set it in front of her. "You're welcome to stay a while," she said. Tara blinked. "Stay? As in this place has 2 bedrooms, and one of them could use someone who isn't pretending." For a moment, Tara didn't move. Then she nodded, slow, like her body was catching up to her relief. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay." By evening, Linda was there with her hair in a messy bun, sleeves rolled up, and that look she got when a plan became action. They worked quietly, moving boxes from the spare room. Evelyn's old files, holiday decorations, things she hadn't touched in years. Linda dusted while Tara unpacked a few belongings she'd brought: a framed photo of her college graduation, a stack of sketchbooks, a small lamp shaped like a tulip. The room transformed in quiet layers, not decorated, but inhabited. "This feels weirdly right," Linda said, tossing a set of fresh sheets across the bed. Like the house knew it was waiting for her. Evelyn stood in the doorway, hands in her pockets. "Maybe it was." Tara looked up from the dresser. "You don't have to do this." "I know," Evelyn said. "That's what makes it mine to do." 2 days later, Neil arrived again. Tie loosened. A man who'd seen enough family battles to know victory rarely looked like triumph. Evelyn handed him a folder across the table. The cover page read, "Last Will and Testament, revised. Tara Marie Kendall," she said, "sole beneficiary. Everything passes directly." Neil scanned the document once, then nodded. "You sure?" "Completely." Linda leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "She's not just taking your side, Ev. She's taking your lessons." Evelyn's lips curved, just barely. "Then she'll know what to do with them." Neil flipped through the pages, checking the seals and notarization lines. "I'll file the changes today. County registry will show the updated record by next week." He gathered the papers neatly, but Evelyn stopped him with one hand. "One more thing," she said. She reached into a lower drawer and pulled out another folder, older, weathered, its edges softened from years of handling. The ink on the label read Draft, Brandon Hart, 2016. She opened it once, long enough to see the signature that had once meant trust. Then she slid it into a metal lockbox, shut the lid, and turned the key. Neil didn't ask what it contained. Linda didn't either. When Evelyn stood, the gesture was calm, final. Like the click of a door that wasn't meant to open again. Later that night, Tara sat on the porch swing with Max asleep at her feet. The crickets sang under the heavy Charleston air. Evelyn joined her with 2 mugs of cocoa, handing one over without a word. Tara smiled faintly. "She's still in denial," she murmured. "Mom keeps saying you'll come to your senses." Evelyn gazed toward the dark silhouette of the main house. Its windows glowed faintly through the trees. "Maybe I finally did." Tara turned to her. "What happens when they realize?" Evelyn sipped her drink. "Then the truth moves in." At 11:42 p.m., Evelyn's phone buzzed. Charlotte. Documents recorded. Transfer locked. Registry now public. Below that, a second message. Brandon and Jess's address just got flagged for notification. Evelyn set the phone face down on the porch railing. She didn't need to read the rest. Inside the main house, a light flickered on and stayed on, like someone had finally checked the mail. It started with a caption. Jessa Hart. To her ago. When people show you who they really are, believe them, especially when they stab you in the back, wearing pearls. The photo was of the front porch, Evelyn's front porch, with the flower baskets slightly wilted and a pale rectangle on the door where the brass house number used to hang. Jessa had filtered the image in moody sepia and disabled comments, but the message was clear. Victim, martyr, spin doctor. Evelyn read the post once, screenshotted it, and forwarded it to Neil with 2 words, for file. Neil replied 3 minutes later, got it, logged under pre-litigation contingency folder. Then, and yes, pearls. Excellent touch. She didn't respond. She just saved the screenshot to her own encrypted drive and filed it beneath a folder labeled Legal Shield, Hart Property. She knew the kind of narratives people like Jessa liked to write. Emotional fiction, dripping with half-truths and curated pain. But Evelyn didn't write from emotion anymore. She wrote from evidence. Linda arrived 20 minutes later, holding 2 iced coffees and 0 pretense. I take it you saw the post? She asked, setting the drinks on the porch table. Evelyn nodded. Neil has it. Linda leaned against the railing. They love a mirror until it reflects the truth. Evelyn didn't laugh, but her eyes flickered in agreement. She really said stabbed in the back? Linda asked, sipping her drink. Wearing pearls? Evelyn confirmed. Linda gave a dry chuckle. That woman wouldn't know loyalty if it showed up gift-wrapped from Neiman Marcus. By mid-afternoon, the mail arrived. A single envelope from the county recorder's office. Tara fetched it while walking Max, her expression unreadable as she handed it over. Evelyn opened it without hesitation. Inside was a single document, stamped and sealed in 2 colors of ink. Final title change. Confirmed. Transfer complete. Registered holder, Harbor Pines. Holdings, LLC. Evelyn ran her fingers over the embossed county seal. There was no drama in her posture, no exhale of triumph. Just stillness. That kind of quiet only found at the bottom of long grief. The kind you don't name out loud. Brandon's number flashed on her screen just after 4 p.m. She didn't decline. She let it ring. Then silence. He tried again. This time she answered, but said nothing. He started talking anyway. I know you don't want to hear it, he said, voice low and careful. But I just keep thinking about the old days. Christmas in Asheville. That year we all went to the Outer Banks, and you made Jessa wear hiking boots. She still complains about that. Evelyn didn't speak. I'm not saying I didn't screw up, he added, more quickly. But I just thought when we said this would be home. We didn't say that, Evelyn said flatly. He paused. I did. Evelyn let the silence hold for a beat, then said, You said a lot of things when you needed comfort. That doesn't make them contracts. This isn't nostalgia, she cut in. It's consequence. He fell silent. Then quietly. Where do we go from here? Evelyn's voice was calm. Out. She hung up. By dusk, the transfer wire cleared. Her phone buzzed once with a confirmation alert. Bank of Charleston, incoming wire. Buzz. $962,000 Drelka USD. No celebration. No champagne. Just digits, decimal points, and the final proof that she hadn't just taken something back. She'd converted grief into power. Evelyn stood at the edge of her guest house porch, looking across the yard. The main house's windows were all dark now. Not from absence. She could see movement behind the blinds, but from retreat. They were in there, huddling, spinning stories, maybe still clinging to the idea that money or sentiment could rewind what had been quietly, legally done. Inside the house, she could almost picture Brandon at the kitchen island scrolling old photos. Jessa pacing upstairs, checking her notifications every 30 seconds. But outside, on Evelyn's side of the grass, there was only quiet. Until a rustle at the edge of the garden. Tara appeared from the path, holding a small brown envelope. It came to our mailbox by mistake, he said, handing it over. Evelyn opened it. Inside, a single page from Jessa, handwritten. I hope you're proud of what you've done. Beneath that, in rushed pen, you used to be family. Evelyn folded the page without reading it again. She looked up at Tara. I still am. I just stopped playing dead for it. The reply from Neil went out at 7:46 a.m. Subject: Clarification. 218 Mayfield Lane. Body, please see attached. Certified deed transfer, wire confirmation of sale, and formal notice of possession change. As of 9 a.m. today, the property is no longer legally occupied by your clients. Entry without authorization will be considered trespassing. Neil Cutter, Esquire. 3 PDFs were attached, each with stamps, signatures, and more finality than a courtroom gavel. Jessa never replied. Brandon didn't either. Evelyn watched the email sit unread in her outbox, the status icon frozen at delivered, not opened, not even skimmed. But they'd seen it. She knew it. Because cowardice had a pattern, and Brandon always flinched before the fall. An hour later, Evelyn stood in the kitchen of the guest house, stirring sugar into her coffee while Linda read aloud from her phone. So apparently, Linda said, scrolling. Jessa called her cousin Danielle, the paralegal one who works part-time at that sketchy family law office over on B Street. Evelyn didn't look up. Of course she did. She asked Danielle to review the situation, which is code for, please help me undo the consequences of my personality. Evelyn's lips curved faintly. Linda tapped her phone. Danielle replied with a 3-line summary. She cleared her throat theatrically. Your mother-in-law retained full ownership. The renovations did not constitute equity without a contractual agreement. She executed the sale within full legal rights. There is no case. Please stop asking me. Evelyn sipped her coffee. That'll be the most honest feedback Jessa's gotten in years. At exactly 9 a.m., Evelyn stepped onto the porch as the locksmith pulled into the driveway, a young man in a red truck, polite and fast. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. Change all 3 exterior locks, she said. Front, back, and garage. He nodded, loading his tool bag onto his shoulder. New keys? Evelyn handed him a small envelope. These go to the new owners. Leave them on the foyer table. No extras. While he worked, Evelyn walked the perimeter of the house one last time. The flower baskets were gone, probably tossed. The mailbox door hung open like a jaw left slack. One shutter leaned off center where a spring storm had shaken it loose. She didn't fix it. That wasn't her responsibility anymore. At 10:43 a.m., the moving trucks arrived. 2 of them. White, unbranded, professional. Out stepped a couple in their early 40s. Sharp, polished, cheerful in that northern practical way. Boston plates, just as Charlotte had said. He wore a Red Sox cap. She held a clipboard and an iced matcha. Morning, the woman called brightly. You must be Evelyn. Evelyn shook her hand. I am. And this, she gestured toward the house, is all yours. The man looked around, taking in the freshly mowed lawn, the wide porch, the garden that would need tending. It's even better in person, he said. His wife nudged him. Go check out the garage. He grinned and jogged off with the energy of someone starting over. The woman turned back to Evelyn. Thank you for making the process so clean. Evelyn smiled gently. That was the goal. They signed a final handover document on the hood of the moving truck. No fanfare, no champagne, just pen to paper, name to address. A clean break. From the guest house, Evelyn watched the new owners cross the threshold, their voices bright and hopeful as they stepped inside. And behind her, Tara joined her at the window, arms folded. Max curled lazily at her feet. They're in, Tara said softly. They are. Do you think she knows it's real yet? Tara asked, meaning Jessa. Evelyn thought for a moment. Jessa only knows something's real when she can't post around it. Outside, the moving crew began to unload boxes, a lamp, a small piano, a framed set of wedding photos. Evelyn didn't recognize. It was already becoming someone else's story. That was the part no one warned you about. How fast the space forgets the people who thought they owned it. At 12:16 p.m., Evelyn's phone buzzed. Text from Neil. Lock change confirmed. Transfer logged. Title office will update records tomorrow. They missed their window. It's done. Below that, a second message. Also, congrats. That's how you win a war without ever showing up to the battlefield. Evelyn looked out at the porch where the couple was arranging patio chairs. The woman laughed at something her husband said. Max barked once and wagged his tail. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like vacuum-sealed peace. And peace, she realized, was the better prize. She turned to Tara. Let's make lunch. The envelope was plain, the paper thick. Evelyn printed the message on acid-free stock and slid it into a clear sleeve before adding it to the Harbor Pines trust binder, tucked neatly behind the tab, labeled Correspondence, Final Year. The note read, I hope you're proud of what you've done. You used to be family. Evelyn clipped the sleeve shut and filed it away, not out of sentiment, out of documentation. Everything that mattered now had to be airtight. Legacy didn't tolerate vagueness. Linda showed up that evening with a bottle of chilled Riesling and a fresh stack of real estate magazines, even though neither of them needed house shopping anymore. I just wanted to see if your smug looked different today, she joked, handing over the wine. Evelyn raised a brow. Does it? Oh, honey, Linda grinned. It's borderline angelic. They sat out on the porch, watching golden light spill across the lawn that no longer connected Evelyn to anything she needed to fix. Linda nodded toward the main house, now dark, unfamiliar. You think she gets it yet? Evelyn poured her a glass. She'll understand when the holiday invite doesn't come. Linda sipped. Cold. No, Evelyn said. Final. Tara finished her final project 3 days later. A series of charcoal sketches titled Inheritance and Other Things You Can't Return. Her professor left a note scrawled in red pen across the bottom. Feral and brilliant. Who hurt you? Tara laughed when she showed it to Evelyn. Guess you're in good company now. Evelyn framed the best one, a side profile of a woman with a house crumbling behind her while she walked calmly forward. By Friday, Tara's lease was up, her degree completed, and her boxes stacked neatly inside the guest house's second bedroom. Evelyn cleared a drawer. No big speech, just space. You sure? Tara asked that night, leaning in the doorway. About? This becoming permanent. Evelyn looked up from her book. You didn't become anything. You chose. That's different. Tara blinked once, nodded, and disappeared down the hall. From the living room, Max let out a quiet bark and then, satisfied, went back to sleep. Saturday morning, Evelyn wrote the final check. It was made out to the Grafton Women's Initiative, the nonprofit she'd helped seed a decade ago. A community scholarship fund, legal aid network, and emergency housing grant for single women starting over. Women who didn't inherit safety, but built it. She signed the check slowly, 6 figures. No fuss. She didn't tell Linda, didn't tell Tara. Some gifts didn't need to be seen. She folded the check into a navy envelope, sealed it with gold wax, and walked it to the mailbox herself. Across town, in a 1-bedroom Airbnb, with a broken ice machine and a view of someone else's alley, Jessa was learning how rental applications work. Why is my credit score this low? She snapped, staring at the screen. Brandon didn't answer. He was across the room, on hold with yet another leasing office, mouthing silent profanities while the hold music looped a piano cover of Fleetwood Mac. Jessa tossed her phone on the bed. You said this would be temporary. You said you'd handle it, Brandon muttered. I did. I called Danielle. And she told us to stop asking her for free legal help. Jessa grabbed the half-empty glass of wine on the counter and paced the length of the room, which took all of 5 steps. She hasn't won, she hissed. Brandon didn't look up. She has. Jessa spun on him. What's that supposed to mean? He finally raised his eyes. They looked hollow. She never raised her voice. She never played dirty, and she still took everything back. A silence cracked between them, deep and wide. Back at the guest house, Evelyn placed a fresh copy of her will into the fireproof safe. The new one, the one with Tara's name. She sealed it, locked it, placed the key on a chain around her neck. Tara called from the kitchen. Hey, did you donate all the champagne, or are we allowed to celebrate small wins around here? Evelyn smiled. Top cabinet, left side, behind the rice. Tara opened the cabinet. Of course it's behind the rice. Evelyn joined her, glasses in hand. They toasted in sweatpants, the dog between them, and the soundtrack of New Beginnings humming just beneath the surface. But as they clinked glasses, Evelyn's phone buzzed once on the counter. A new email. Subject: incoming legal inquiry regarding prior property ownership. No sender name, no attachments. Just a placeholder for a battle someone still thought was coming. Evelyn set down her glass and opened the message. She read it once, then again, and her smile didn't move. The clinic was quiet. Not sterile, not cold. Just still, like a library before opening. The psychologist, a soft-voiced woman with salt and pepper curls and surgical efficiency, handed Evelyn a clipboard with a battery of cognitive tests. "I'll be here if you need anything," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Take your time." Evelyn didn't need time. She took the pen and moved through each question with the cool precision of someone who'd spent years remembering everything others tried to forget. Dates, signatures, conversations, discrepancies so small, they slipped through cracks for other people, but stuck in her teeth like grit. When she reached the spatial recall test, she paused, not from doubt, but from muscle memory. Jessa had once accused her of holding on to too much. Brandon had agreed. They weren't wrong. They just didn't expect her to weaponize it. 2 days later, Neil called. "I have the report." Evelyn sat at the kitchen table, tea steeping in the corner, Max asleep on her foot. Neil didn't wait for her to ask. Verbal reasoning, superior. Pattern recognition, top 3%. Processing speed, excellent. Memory scores well above average. The neurologist used the phrase, formidably intact. Evelyn smiled into the receiver. "Add it to the archive. Already done, and I've preemptively sent certified copies to the probate registrar, your bank, your healthcare proxy, and the title firm, in case anyone gets the idea to contest capacity. They won't be that bold." "True," Neil said. "But people get creative when desperation smells like furniture they can't sit on anymore." Evelyn hung up and walked to her safe. Inside were the building blocks of her post-war life, the updated will, the trust paperwork, the legal transfer of Harbor Pines, a series of signed declarations. And now, one more page, stamped, notarized, and irrefutable. She slid the test results into the slot behind the will and relocked the safe. Linda arrived that afternoon with a folder full of board meeting notes for a housing initiative they were co-chairing and a Tupperware of spinach lasagna. She'd accidentally doubled. She glanced at the envelope on the counter, the one bearing the clinic's letterhead. "You got it," Evelyn nodded. Filed, notarized, and forwarded. Linda poured 2 glasses of hibiscus tea. "Good. Let them try and say you're slipping." "They already are," Evelyn said. That legal inquiry was fishing for grounds to challenge the sale, probably hoping they could argue diminished cognition. Linda scoffed. "They forget you can recite the serial number on a 20-year-old dishwasher you never liked." "They forget everything," Evelyn said, "especially what I never said out loud." Linda clinked her glass to Evelyn's. "You don't just remember details. You weaponize them." Evelyn drank, then added, "And I document everything they forget." Later that night, Tara sat on the couch, laptop open, Max snoring beside her. She was reading a Reddit thread about narcissistic collapse and scrolling through Jess's Instagram stories, or what was left of them. "She's trying to look unbothered," Tara said dryly. "Spa selfies and quote reposts about strength. That usually means she's unraveling in the group chat." "She'll spin her failure until someone believes it's sabotage," Evelyn said. "She'll say you ambushed them. I gave them 3 years of free rent. She'll say you manipulated the sale. I had the deed the whole time." Tara nodded. "So, just facts then." Evelyn smirked, then rose. She walked to the counter and retrieved the updated will, still unsigned. Fresh from Neil's office with a final line left blank, witness signature. "Want to help me finish something?" she asked. Tara closed her laptop. "Always." An hour later, Evelyn sat at the table with Linda and Tara flanking her. The room was quiet, intentional. A single candle flickered on the table beside the document. Evelyn signed in blue ink, deliberately the way someone signs when they know no one else will ever erase it. Tara signed next, then Linda. The affidavit went last. 2 witnesses, 1 unshakable beneficiary, every seal in place. Evelyn folded the document, placed it in the envelope, and walked it to the safe. When the door closed and the lock clicked, the sound echoed like the end of something important, like memory folding back into steel. At 11:27 p.m., Evelyn received one more message. From unknown. Subject: Second request. Property challenge. It included a PDF, no signature, no letterhead, just a digital form attempting to contest the sale on undue influence grounds. Evelyn read it, then forwarded it to Neil with one sentence. They underestimated the wrong mind. The address on the lease read 224 Birch Street, Apt 3B. The building looked like it hadn't been power washed since the Bush administration. Beige stucco, spiderwebbed with hairline cracks. A rusted security gate that didn't latch properly. The lobby smelled faintly of mildew and takeout, and the stairwell creaked like a protest with every step. Inside, the apartment was small, aggressively so. One bedroom, low ceilings, linoleum that curled at the edges, and a window unit that rattled like it was being paid to complain. No central air, Jessa asked, blinking. Seriously, Brandon was hauling a box labeled kitchen, fragile and already sweating. It's temporary. Temporary was supposed to be a condo. Temporary was supposed to include a house we don't legally own anymore. Jessa dropped her bag on the floor and winced at the sound it made. You said you were talking to someone about listings. I was. And then the application fees added up and my credit got flagged for a delinquent utilities account. Oh, that one wasn't mine, Jessa snapped. You were the one who wanted the hot tub. They stared at each other. Neither spoke. Then Jessa muttered, "This is your fault." And Brandon, voice low, almost inaudible, "No, this is Evelyn's." Across town, Evelyn was slicing nectarines for a galette when Tara walked in, barefoot, holding 2 iced teas and a face that already knew something. They moved in, Tara said, setting the drinks down. Birch Street. I drove by on the way back from campus. Evelyn raised a brow but didn't ask. It's bleak, Tara added. No driveway, no space, no silence. You can hear the neighbors through the wall. I heard someone arguing about Xbox volume. Evelyn set the knife down, wiped her hands. And? They miss comfort, Tara said. Not you, Evelyn nodded. Exactly. Later that night, Evelyn sat at her desk with the Harbor Pines trust binder open again. She read through each clause of the updated trust, careful, methodical. Every page confirmed her control. But control wasn't enough, not anymore. Not with the last email still lingering in her inbox like a mosquito that refused to die. She pulled a fresh sheet of paper from her drawer and began drafting an amendment. Clause 14B, Challenge Prevention and Protective Measures. Any named party contesting the contents of this trust, or the transfer of assets, shall be immediately disqualified from inheritance, advisory position, or executor rights. All legal costs incurred due to contestation shall be deducted from any outstanding familial debt or lien. This clause supersedes all prior discretionary warnings. She read it again, then typed it, formatted it, printed it on watermarked bond paper. She called Neil. Send a notary, she said. No problem, he replied. I've got a guy, knows how to keep his mouth shut. Perfect, Evelyn said. Make sure he knows I don't like delays. In apartment 3B, Brandon lay on the old futon they were using until a mattress could be delivered. The air was thick, unmoving. The window unit sputtered and groaned. Jessa had taken the single bedroom and shut the door without a word. Brandon stared at the ceiling, replaying a voicemail from a leasing agent that said, "Sorry, but your documentation was incomplete and flagged. We've gone with another applicant." Then, as if in mockery, the pipes clanged once, sharp and hollow, like something shifting in the walls. He rolled over and grabbed his phone, opened Evelyn's contact, stared, and did nothing. The notary arrived promptly at 9:30 a.m. Navy suit, thin smile, clipboard already loaded with acknowledgement pages. Evelyn signed each copy of the amendment in triplicate. Her hand didn't shake. Tara stood at the counter, watching with quiet admiration. "What's this one do?" she asked. Evelyn slipped the final copy into the safe and turned the lock. "It makes sure history doesn't try to rewrite itself." Tara smiled. "She's gonna lose her mind when she finds out she's not even allowed to fight." "That's not the goal," Evelyn said calmly. "The goal is to make her realize there was never a war. just consequences. At 6:42 p.m., Evelyn received a text from Neil. Neil. Amendment 14B officially filed and time-stamped. They challenge, they lose. Simple as that. Also, congrats. This version of you could run a small nation. Evelyn didn't respond. She was watching the oven timer tick down, the smell of warm galette rising in the kitchen. Tara set the table. Max scratched once at the back door, and just as the timer beeped, Evelyn's phone buzzed again. Unknown number voicemail. 0:42 seconds. She pressed play. Jess's voice. Cracked, bitter, breathless. You think this makes you strong? Freezing us out and calling it legacy? I hope it's worth it. Because you'll end up alone in that house, with no one left to control. Evelyn deleted the message mid-sentence, then served dessert. Neil's office smelled like polished wood, quiet power, and freshly brewed coffee. Tara sat at the conference table with a legal pad in front of her, flipping through the trust binder Neil had handed her. Read Clause 9 again, Neil said from the head of the table. What's missing? Tara scanned the page. It specifies the transfer structure but doesn't cite the exemption code under federal estate law. Neil nodded, which means it's contestable if someone wants to claim coercion or incomplete intent. Good, he said. Now fix it. She did. No hesitation, no second guessing. Just a red pen and a quiet confidence that had taken root since she'd moved in with Evelyn. By the end of her second week as Neil's summer intern, she could draft a revocable trust, flag undue influence triggers, and cite 2 different South Carolina precedents on elder exploitation. Neil leaned back in his chair, watching her work. She's sharp, he muttered, just like you. Evelyn, on the phone with him later that day, barely paused. She's sharper. I've just learned how to hold the blade. At home, Evelyn didn't hover. She brewed tea, highlighted articles, left margin notes in Tara's textbooks. She never called it mentoring. She just made herself available. You don't explain things like a teacher, Tara said one night, curled up on the couch beside a stack of estate planning journals. I'm not one, Evelyn said, sipping her tea. I just know what happens when people let others write their endings. For her internship capstone, Tara submitted a research paper titled, What Family Should Mean, and What It Sometimes Doesn't. It wasn't angry, it was clinical. Cold in places. A dissection of legal failures to protect the vulnerable within their own households, especially when manipulation came dressed in smiles and Sunday dinners. She cited a case, hypothetical in name only, where a woman surrendered her home to relatives under the illusion of shared legacy, only to find herself evicted in everything but name. Tara's advisor called the paper devastatingly precise. Neil called it personal without apology. Evelyn read it in full silence. She didn't cry. She simply closed the folder, stood, and walked to her desk. From the drawer, she pulled one last document. Final Amendment, Evelyn Hart Living Trust. It was simple. 1 paragraph. A closing note to seal the years behind her. She signed it. Date, name, witness. She pressed the pen to the page with intention, not ceremony, then slid the paper into the binder Tara had helped organize. As she locked it into the safe, she spoke aloud, not to anyone, just to the room. That's the last thing I'll ever leave unsigned. Later that evening, the house smelled of roasted rosemary chicken and baked peaches. Max snored beneath the kitchen table. Linda was at the sink pouring wine into mismatched glasses. You see the paper yet? She asked, handing one to Evelyn. She didn't ask me to. Doesn't matter, Linda said. You're in it, every line. Evelyn raised her glass without comment. Tara joined them with a stack of manila envelopes and a sleepy grin. We got our grades, my papers being submitted to the State Bar's Ethics Committee for review. Might be published. Evelyn took one of the envelopes and opened it slowly. Inside, a copy of the paper. First page signed, second annotated, third embossed. At the bottom of the final page, one last line handwritten in Tara's clean, sharp script. Because legacy should be lived into, not stolen. Evelyn folded the paper and placed it in her desk drawer. That night, Tara passed by the open door of Evelyn's study. She paused in the threshold. You did this for me, she said softly. No, Evelyn replied, without turning around. I did it for myself. You were just smart enough to notice it mattered. Tara smiled. Still feels like being chosen. Evelyn looked up. Her expression was steady. You weren't chosen, she said. You earned it. At 11:12 p.m., Evelyn received a final message from her estate server. Subject: Beneficiary ledger update. Hart legacy account status. Final amendment logged. No pending actions. All designations current. She closed the screen, then turned off the lamp. And for the first time in years, she slept like someone whose story had no footnotes. The envelope arrived late, not because of distance, but because of hesitation. Handwritten, no return address. Postmarked 2 towns over. Evelyn opened it at the kitchen table without ceremony, the same way she sorted utility bills or catalogs she didn't subscribe to. Inside, a single page, unlined. Cheap ink, rushed handwriting. Evelyn, we all make mistakes. You've made yours. You hurt people. You ended something that didn't need to be permanent. It didn't have to go this far. You should have come to us. You should have tried. There's still time to fix this, or at least not make it worse. Jessa. No apology, no ownership, just the familiar tilt of manipulation in cursive form. Part threat, part nostalgia, part rewrite. Evelyn read it once, then placed it beside her tea and picked up her phone. Neil responded by end of day. Subject: Hart Estate Correspondence. Body: Dear Ms. Hart, per your letter to Evelyn Hart, we confirm that all property, financial, and legal matters related to the estate and trust have been formally closed. No further communication is required or requested. Please consider this final notice of resolution. Neil Cutter, Esquire. Evelyn didn't edit a word. Just hit send. Tara, seated nearby with the textbook open and Max snoozing beneath her socked feet, saw the email disappear from the screen. She didn't say anything, just nodded. Across town, in apartment 3B, Jessa checked her email at midnight and reread Neil's message 5 times, waiting for the meaning to change. It didn't. She slammed the laptop shut. Brandon didn't look up from the couch. Let me guess, nothing? She thinks this is done, Jessa hissed. Like she can just walk away with the story she wrote for us. Brandon shrugged. She already did. Jessa grabbed her phone, opened her mortgage pre-approval app, and checked the status. Denied. Reason: credit score below threshold. Unstable income. Prior eviction filing. She stared at it like it owed her an apology. A week later, an envelope arrived from the leasing office. Their rent was going up by $320 a month. Jessa's voice cracked as she read the letter out loud. Due to market conditions and increased maintenance needs, she crumpled the paper and threw it across the room. It bounced off the dented coffee table and landed near Brandon's feet. We can't even afford this dump, she snapped. Brandon didn't argue. He just grabbed his coat and walked out without saying where he was going. Back in the guest house, Evelyn was writing again. Not legal notes, not amendments. A list. At the top, in clean ink, 2026 charitable disbursements, early allocations. She paused midway through the second line. Grafton Women's Initiative, unrestricted donation. Then added a new recipient beneath it. Charleston Senior Housing Access Fund. Targeted emergency relief. She didn't discuss it with Linda. Didn't mention it to Tara, but when she sealed the envelope, she took one final moment to write in the memo line, for the ones still waiting to be safe. That evening, Tara stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching Evelyn slice vegetables with the quiet rhythm of someone who had nothing left to protect but peace. Do you ever think they'll stop trying? Tara asked. Evelyn didn't look up. They're not trying, Tara frowned. The letters, the applications. They're not trying to change, Evelyn clarified. They're just trying to reverse what they lost. There's a difference. Tara said nothing for a long time. Then, you don't flinch when they poke the bruise. I stopped calling it a bruise. At 9:14 p.m., Evelyn opened her desk drawer, pulled out Jessa's letter, and ran one thumb along the bottom of the page. That final line, you should have tried. She smiled faintly, then fed it through the shredder. 5 seconds. Confetti. Nothing left to prove. The auditorium wasn't grand. No velvet curtains or marble halls. Just clean lines, soft lighting, and an audience that listened. Not because they had to, but because the voice on stage made them want to. Tara stood behind the podium in a blazer Evelyn had lent her, soft gray, structured at the shoulders. She hadn't planned to speak. She was just supposed to attend the local legal panel on estate ethics as a rising intern. But a last-minute cancellation opened a spot, and Neil had nudged her forward. "You've got something to say," he whispered. "And they need to hear it." Now she did. 100 silent faces stared back at her. Students, attorneys, public service reps, and behind them, the cameras. "My name is Tara Kendall," she said clearly, "and I want to talk about the difference between inheritance and expectation." There wasn't a single note in her hand. She didn't need one. At home, Evelyn sat on the couch with a cup of mint tea, Max curled beside her. Linda was perched on the armrest, half listening while scrolling through emails. When the live stream started, Evelyn turned up the volume. No one spoke. No one moved. On screen, Tara's voice carried without force, calm, even. "There's this quiet assumption that legacy is a default, that we're owed something, a house, a title, a place at the table, just because we're related to the person who built it. But family doesn't entitle us. Behavior does. Integrity does." She paused. Let the silence hold. "And if you inherit something by deception or demand, you didn't inherit it, you stole it, no matter how quietly it was done." In the second row, Neil leaned forward in his chair, the only sign of emotion a small smile he didn't try to hide. Tara continued, "I watched someone build a fortress out of signatures, not to lock people out, but to protect what should have never been taken. And the most important thing I learned wasn't legal. It was human." She glanced down once, then back up. "Legacy is earned, not expected." The clip hit social media by nightfall. First it landed in legal circles, LinkedIn shares, estate law Reddit threads, a law school's newsletter. Then it crossed into broader platforms, a small clip, just 42 seconds. Tara standing in front of a microphone with her hands steady and her voice clear. Legacy is earned, not expected. By morning, it had over 80,000 views. Evelyn didn't post about it. She didn't need to. She watched it once, then again, and somewhere around the third play, she reached across the armrest and touched Linda's hand without a word. Linda squeezed it. "You gave them everything," she said. "Even a door to walk out of." Evelyn's smile was tired, but sure. "And I finally shut it." Brandon and Jessa never responded. Not to the message, not to the clip, not to the truth echoing like a bell they'd tried to muffle for years. They didn't reach out, didn't write back, didn't try again. Instead, they faded. One more pair of people the world had caught up to. Tara came home late that night, flushed and exhilarated. She dropped her tote by the door and sank into the armchair across from Evelyn, breathless. "Neil said we've been invited to present it again. Statewide conference. Real podium this time." Evelyn nodded. "You earned it." Tara hesitated. "They didn't respond." "I know. Do you think they watched?" "I think they had to." Tara looked away, lips pressed. "It doesn't feel triumphant." "It shouldn't," Evelyn said. "Truth isn't a trophy." At 10:04 p.m., Evelyn walked to her safe, opened the drawer and pulled out her original will, the one with Brandon's name, not the revised copy, not the notarized amendment, the first one. She turned it in her hands once, then stepped outside. The fire pit was already stacked, dry cedar, tinder tucked beneath. She lit the match and let the past burn in clean, silent flame. The new owners emailed her on a Wednesday. Just a short note, friendly, gracious, no pressure. "We've done some updates. Nothing drastic. Just wanted to let you know the house is loved. If you're ever curious, we'd be happy to show you." Evelyn didn't answer right away. She made a cup of tea, stared out the kitchen window, and let the question live in the space between seconds. It had been over a year, enough time for the grass to grow back, the laughter to sound different, the echo of slammed doors to finally fade into the bones of the place. "By Friday," she replied. "Sure, one visit." The sky was clear the afternoon she went. Tara drove, one hand on the wheel, the other loosely draped over the armrest between them. The house looked both exactly the same and entirely different, painted a soft coastal gray, black shutters now a deep slate blue. The garden had been revived. The jasmine had climbed higher, the flower beds cleaner, but the mailbox was new. The porch furniture fresh. The welcome mat said, "Home is who you love." The woman, Sarah, opened the door with a wide, real smile. "We didn't change too much," she said nervously. "I promise. We just made it ours." "You should," Evelyn said softly. "It's yours now." They walked through the entry, past the front sitting room where Jessa once demanded a velvet fainting couch for aesthetic, and into the kitchen, where the island was now butcher block, and the dining nook had been opened into a breakfast bar. Light poured in. It was beautiful, not hers, and that was the point. Evelyn touched nothing, took nothing, just looked, nodded, and turned once more in the front hallway. "It's lovely," she said. Sarah hesitated. "Would you like to stay for a glass of wine? No pressure." Evelyn smiled, kind but distant. "No, thank you. I've already stayed long enough." She walked out without turning around. In the car, Tara didn't say anything until they turned onto the main road. "You okay?" Evelyn exhaled. "I didn't feel much of anything. That's probably what peace feels like." "Maybe," Evelyn said. "Or maybe it's just finally being empty where I used to carry too much." Tara reached for the radio and turned it off. Silence suited them better. Back at the guest house, which hadn't been a guest house in over a year now, Max greeted them with a bark and a wag, and Linda had already prepped dinner and poured the wine. Evelyn checked the messages on the kitchen tablet. One new voicemail from Neil. She played it aloud. "Evelyn, just confirming. Everything is finalized. The trust is fully funded. Every clause is ironclad. And you now have more legal protection than a Pentagon contract. Congrats, my friend. You're untouchable. Call me when you want to laugh about it over drinks." Evelyn smiled. Tara raised her glass. "To no more fires left to put out," Linda added. "To women who win without flinching." Evelyn clinked her glass gently. "No bitterness," she said. "Just boundaries." Later that night, after the table was cleared and Max had curled up on the rug, Evelyn walked to her desk. She opened the bottom drawer, pulled out a single file folder labeled "Closed." Inside were a handful of documents. Not legal, not financial, personal. Scars with paper trails, letters, printouts, the earliest copy of the deed, a photo of the front porch before the remodel, and one typed page, the only one she'd ever written for herself and never sent. She read it again, slowly, line by line, then added one final sentence, the last in black ink across the bottom. "At my son's birthday, his wife said, 'You should have stayed home.' I did. After I took the home back." She slid the page into a fresh envelope, labeled it "Legacy Notes, Private," then tucked it into the back of the binder Tara had helped organize. Evelyn closed the drawer, turned off the lamp, and stepped outside into the still night air. No voices, no weight. Only the hush of the garden blooming again, without witnesses, without performance. Just truth. And soil that finally belonged to no one but her.